Humanity was a young race compared to the great empires of the galaxy. The other species had been in space for thousands of years, some even longer. They had built vast cities on distant planets and had powerful fleets that could destroy worlds. They looked at humans as nothing more than children, new and weak. They thought humans would stay small and unimportant. But they were wrong. Humans had a spirit that was different. They never gave up. When they faced a challenge, they did not run. They fought. They adapted. They learned fast. The old races of the galaxy did not understand this. They had been powerful for too long, and they had stopped changing. Humans, on the other hand, were always changing, always growing. The Galactic Council was a group of the oldest and most powerful races. They made the rules for the galaxy. They controlled trade, borders, and war. For many years, they had ignored humanity, thinking they would not last long. But humans spread quickly, building colonies and space stations in places the Council never expected. They did not ask for permission. They simply went forward, pushing into the unknown. The Council began to worry. How had this young race come so far, so fast? Other species had taken thousands of years to reach the stars, but humans had done it in just a few hundred. The Council decided to meet and discuss the human problem. They gathered in the grand chamber of their homeworld, where the oldest species spoke in slow, careful words. Some wanted to stop humanity before they became a real threat. Others wanted to study them, to understand what made them different. While the Council debated, humanity continued to grow. Their ships were smaller than the great warships of the elder races, but they were fast and clever. Their weapons were not the most advanced, but they were used with skill. When humans fought, they did not fight like the old empires. They used surprise. They used deception. They turned weakness into strength. And most of all, they never stopped moving forward. Some of the elder races tried to block humanity's expansion. They sent patrols to keep humans out of certain regions. They placed rules to slow them down. But none of it worked. Humans found ways around every rule, every blockade. They did not believe in limits. One of the oldest races, the Zorani, finally had enough. They were a proud species with a long history. They had built mighty cities in the stars before humans had even learned to write. They decided to send a message. They took control of a human colony on the edge of known space. The colony had only a few thousand people, no real army, no warships. The Zorani thought it would be easy. They were wrong. The humans did not surrender. They sent a distress signal, and within hours, human ships arrived. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but that did not stop them. They fought back, using every trick they knew. They did not follow the rules of war that the older races had followed for centuries. They hit fast, they hit hard, and they kept hitting. The Zorani ships, built for slow and careful battles, could not keep up. Within days, the human fleet had taken back the colony. The news spread quickly. The other empires were shocked. No young race had ever done such a thing. The Zorani were humiliated. They demanded war, but the Council was afraid. If humans could defeat one of their strongest members, what else could they do? Some in the Council wanted peace. They sent diplomats to speak with human leaders. But the elder races did not understand humanity. They spoke in long, slow words, expecting humans to wait, to listen, to obey. But humans did not wait. While the diplomats talked, human explorers pushed even farther into the unknown. The truth was clear. The old powers of the galaxy had grown slow, and humanity had become something they did not expect. They had become strong. They had become dangerous. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity was a young race compared to the great empires of the galaxy. The other species had been in space for thousands of years, some even longer. They had built vast cities on distant planets and had powerful fleets that could destroy worlds. They looked at humans as nothing more than children, new and weak. They thought humans would stay small and unimportant. But they were wrong. Humans had a spirit that was different. They never gave up. When they faced a challenge, they did not run. They fought. They adapted. They learned fast. The old races of the galaxy did not understand this. They had been powerful for too long, and they had stopped changing. Humans, on the other hand, were always changing, always growing. The Galactic Council was a group of the oldest and most powerful races. They made the rules for the galaxy. They controlled trade, borders, and war. For many years, they had ignored humanity, thinking they would not last long. But humans spread quickly, building colonies and space stations in places the Council never expected. They did not ask for permission. They simply went forward, pushing into the unknown. The Council began to worry. How had this young race come so far so fast? Other species had taken thousands of years to reach the stars, but humans had done it in just a few hundred. The Council decided to meet and discuss the human problem. They gathered in the grand chamber of their homeworld, where the oldest species spoke in slow, careful words. Some wanted to stop humanity before they became a real threat. Others wanted to study them, to understand what made them different. While the Council debated, humanity continued to grow. Their ships were smaller than the great warships of the elder races, but they were fast and clever. Their weapons were not the most advanced, but they were used with skill. When humans fought, they did not fight like the old empires. They used surprise. They used deception. They turned weakness into strength. And most of all, they never stopped moving forward. Some of the elder races tried to block humanity's expansion. They sent patrols to keep humans out of certain regions. They placed rules to slow them down. But none of it worked. Humans found ways around every rule, every blockade. They did not believe in limits. One of the oldest races, the Zorani, finally had enough. They were a proud species with a long history. They had built mighty cities in the stars before humans had even learned to write. They decided to send a message. They took control of a human colony on the edge of known space. The colony had only a few thousand people, no real army, no warships. The Zorani thought it would be easy. They were wrong. The humans did not surrender. They sent a distress signal, and within hours, human ships arrived. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but that did not stop them. They fought back, using every trick they knew. They did not follow the rules of war that the older races had followed for centuries. They hit fast, they hit hard, and they kept hitting. The Zorani ships, built for slow and careful battles, could not keep up. Within days, the human fleet had taken back the colony. The news spread quickly. The other empires were shocked. No young race had ever done such a thing. The Zorani were humiliated. They demanded war, but the Council was afraid. If humans could defeat one of their strongest members, what else could they do? Some in the Council wanted peace. They sent diplomats to speak with human leaders. But the elder races did not understand humanity. They spoke in long, slow words, expecting humans to wait, to listen, to obey. But humans did not wait. While the diplomats talked, human explorers pushed even farther into the unknown. The truth was clear. The old powers of the galaxy had grown slow, and humanity had become something they did not expect. They had become strong. They had become dangerous. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Endeavor moved through space at full speed, leaving the strange planet behind. The crew was silent, still trying to understand what had happened. They had found something ancient, something dangerous. The warning left behind by the lost civilization was clear. There was an enemy in the darkness, something powerful enough to erase an entire race. And now, that enemy knew about humans. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his chair, deep in thought. He had faced many dangers in his career, but this was different. The alien ships had disappeared, but that did not mean the threat was gone. He looked at Sarah Morgan, who had cracked the ancient code. She was still studying the data, searching for more answers. If they were going to survive, they needed to know what they were up against. Eric Dawson, the chief engineer, entered the bridge. His face was tense. "Captain, we took heavy damage in the fight. The shields are weak, and the engines need repairs. We need to stop soon." Daniel nodded. "They could not run forever. Find the closest safe system, somewhere we can land, and make repairs." The navigation officer scanned the star maps. "There's a small system nearby. A barren planet. No signs of life. It should be safe." The Endeavour changed course, heading toward the quiet system. The journey took a few hours, and the crew used the time to check the ship's condition. Engineers worked hard to repair what they could. The medics treated the wounded. Everyone was on edge, waiting for something to happen. When they reached the barren planet, the ship descended carefully. The surface was rocky and covered in dust. There were no signs of danger, no strange signals. It was empty. Daniel ordered the crew to set up a temporary base. They needed time to fix the ship and figure out their next move. As the crew worked, Sarah continued her research. She studied the symbols from the ruins, hoping to find something useful. The more she read, the more she understood. The lost civilization had fought the enemy for centuries. They had built great weapons, powerful defenses, but in the end, it had not been enough. Sarah found something that made her heart race. A map. It showed locations of old outposts, places where the lost race had hidden their knowledge and technology. If they could find these outposts, they might find something to help them fight back. She ran to the captain. "Daniel, I found something. There's a place, not far from here. One of their old bases. It might have weapons, information, something we can use." Daniel looked at the map. It was risky, but they needed answers. "We'll go. Get a team ready." A small group took a shuttle and flew to the location. The journey was short, but the tension was high. When they arrived, they saw the ruins of an old structure half buried in the sand. They landed carefully and stepped out, weapons ready. Inside, the air was still and heavy. The walls were covered in more symbols, telling stories of battles long past. As they moved deeper, they found a control room. Screens covered in dust flickered to life as they approached. The ancient system still had power. Eric worked quickly, connecting his equipment to the old computers. Data filled his screen. He smiled. "There's a lot here. Weapons blueprints, defense strategies, even recordings from their final days." Sarah listened to one of the recordings. A deep voice spoke in a strange language, but the translation was clear. "We fought until the end. Our weapons slowed them, but they could not stop them. They come from the void, endless and hungry. If you hear this, be ready. They will return." The words sent a chill through the team. This was not just an old war. It was a warning for anyone who came after. The enemy had destroyed this civilization, and now they were awake again. Humanity had little time. Eric downloaded as much data as he could. "We need to get this back to the ship." As they left the ruins, a strange sound filled the air. A deep hum, growing louder. The ground trembled. Sarah looked up and gasped. A massive shadow moved in the sky. A ship, unlike any they had seen before. They ran as the enemy ship descended. The sand around them rose into the air as powerful engines roared. The team barely made it to the shuttle before a bright beam of energy struck the ground behind them. The ruins exploded into fire and dust. On the bridge, the crew moved fast. The Endeavour's engines roared to life. The enemy ship chased them, firing powerful blasts. The shields struggled to hold, sparks flying across the control panels. The human ship twisted and turned, dodging the deadly attacks. Sarah sent the new data to the command systems. "We have information on their weapons. Sending now." The Endeavour's cannons roared, striking the enemy ship with deadly accuracy. The alien vessel shuddered, its hull breaking apart. A final blast sent it crashing into the planet below. The Endeavour moved through space at high speed, escaping the enemy ship that had chased them. The crew was silent, their hearts still pounding from the battle. They had won this fight, but the real war was just beginning. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the command center, watching the stars outside. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. Sarah Morgan sat in front of the main computer, scanning through the ancient data they had recovered. The lost civilization had left behind secrets, weapons, and warnings. She searched for anything that could help. Eric Dawson, the chief engineer, worked beside her, trying to understand the technology. "This data is amazing," Eric said. "Their weapons were powerful, but they still lost. We need to figure out why." Sarah nodded. "I found something. There's a location marked as a last refuge. It might have more weapons, maybe even survivors." Daniel walked over. "Where is it?" Sarah checked the star map. "It's far, but we can reach it. If there's something there that can help us fight, we have to go." Daniel turned to his crew. "Set course. We're going." The ship changed direction, heading toward the mysterious location. The journey took several hours. The crew used the time to repair the ship and prepare for another fight. The enemy had found them once, and they would find them again. As they neared the destination, the scanners picked up something unusual. A station, floating in the darkness. It was large, built from metal and stone. Unlike anything human-made. It had power, but no life signs. The station was waiting, silent and empty. The Endeavor approached carefully. Daniel ordered a team to suit up and explore. He, Sarah, Eric, and a few soldiers entered the docking bay. The doors creaked open, revealing a dark hallway filled with dust and old machines. The air was thin but breathable. The walls were covered in symbols, the same ones they had seen before. They moved slowly, weapons ready. The deeper they went, the more they saw signs of battle. Burned walls, broken machines, and old skeletons. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent. The station had been a stronghold, but it had fallen. Sarah found a control panel and powered it up. Lights flickered and a hologram appeared. It showed an alien figure, tall and covered in armor. Its voice spoke in a strange language, but the computer translated. "If you are hearing this, you are the last hope. We fought, but we failed. The enemy is endless. They come from the void, consuming everything. Our weapons slowed them, but they were not enough. If you wish to survive, you must finish what we could not. This station holds the key." The hologram faded, and the screen showed a blueprint. A powerful weapon, something unlike anything humans had ever seen. It used energy far beyond human technology. If they could build it, they might have a chance. Eric studied the design. "This is incredible. It could destroy an entire fleet, but we don't have the materials to build it." Sarah checked the database. "There's a storage bay on this station. If we're lucky, the materials might still be there." They moved deeper into the station, searching for the storage area. The silence was heavy. The only sound was their footsteps. Then, a noise. A low hum, growing louder. Daniel raised his weapon. "Something's here." The team spread out, moving carefully. The hum turned into a growl. From the shadows, metallic creatures appeared. They had long limbs and glowing red eyes. They were not alive, but they were dangerous. "Run," Daniel shouted. The creatures attacked, moving fast. The team fired, their weapons barely slowing them. One of the soldiers was grabbed and thrown against the wall. Sarah and Eric ran toward the storage bay. Daniel and the others fought to keep the creatures back. Inside the storage bay, Sarah found what they needed. Large crates filled with glowing materials, the same energy source from the blueprints. She activated a transport drone, loading the materials onto it. Daniel and the others ran into the bay, locking the doors behind them. The creatures pounded on the metal, trying to break through. "We have to go," Eric said. They rushed back to the docking bay, the creatures right behind them. The team jumped into the shuttle and launched toward the Endeavor. As they flew away, the station's lights flickered. A warning message appeared on their screens. Enemy detected. They are coming. Daniel's heart sank. They had what they needed, but now the enemy knew where they were. The war had truly begun. The Endeavour raced through space, moving as fast as it could. The enemy had detected them, and they had little time before they would be hunted down again. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, watching the stars blur past. His crew had retrieved the materials needed for the powerful weapon, but now they had to survive long enough to use them. Sarah Morgan sat at the main console, checking the readings. No enemy ships on the scanners yet, she said, her voice tense. But that won't last long. Eric Dawson, the chief engineer, was already deep in work. He had studied the alien blueprints from the station. The weapon was unlike anything humans had built before. It used energy in ways that seemed impossible. But Eric was determined. If they could build it, they might have a chance. We need time, Eric said, looking up at Daniel. I can make this work, but I need at least a few hours to get the main system ready. Daniel nodded. Find us a hiding spot, he ordered his crew. We can't fight them yet. We need to disappear until the weapon is ready. The navigation officer checked the star maps. There's an asteroid field nearby. If we can get inside, it might block their scanners. Daniel made the decision quickly. Take us there. Now. The Endeavour changed course, heading toward the asteroid field. The large rocks floated through space, spinning in slow motion. It was dangerous, but they had no choice. The ship carefully maneuvered between the massive asteroids, using them for cover. Shutting down non-essential systems, Sarah said, minimizing our energy signature. Hopefully, they won't find us. Eric wasted no time. He and his team worked fast, assembling the weapon piece by piece. The energy core was unstable, glowing with a strange blue light. It was unlike any human technology, and that made it unpredictable. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped. Sarah's hands flew over the controls. Enemy ships have entered the system. They're searching for us. Daniel clenched his fists. How long until they reach the asteroid field? Less than 20 minutes, Sarah replied. Eric didn't stop working. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he adjusted the energy coils. I need more time. This thing isn't ready yet. Daniel turned to his crew. Prepare for battle, but do not engage unless they find us. We hold our position. The enemy ships spread out, scanning the area. The crew watched the monitors in silence, holding their breath. If even one ship detected them, it would be over. Minutes passed like hours. The enemy moved closer, scanning each asteroid carefully. One ship drifted dangerously near the Endeavour's hiding spot. Sarah bit her lip, gripping the console tightly. They're too close. Daniel watched as the enemy ship hovered nearby. Then, without warning, a bright light flashed. The enemy had detected something. They found us, Sarah shouted. Prepare to move, Daniel ordered. The enemy ship charged its weapons. The Endeavour's engines roared to life, dodging between asteroids as the enemy fired. Explosions shook the ship. The crew held on tight as they navigated through the deadly field. Eric yelled over the noise. Weapon is at 50%. I need more time. You have 5 minutes, Daniel shouted back. Make it work. The enemy ships pursued them, firing nonstop. One shot hit the hull, causing sparks to fly. Damage reports flooded the screens. Sarah's voice was urgent. Shields are failing. We can't take another hit like that. Eric made a final adjustment. The weapon hummed with energy, the blue light pulsing. It's ready. I don't know if it'll work, but it's our only shot. Daniel gave the order. Fire. The Endeavour's new weapon activated. A bright blue beam shot out, cutting through space like a blade. It hit the nearest enemy ship, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, the enemy ship exploded, breaking apart into glowing pieces. The energy beam arced, striking another ship, then another. In seconds, 3 enemy ships were gone. The remaining enemy ships hesitated. The humans had just used something they did not understand. The ancient technology had worked. The enemies turned, retreating into the darkness. The crew of the Endeavour cheered, but Daniel knew this was just the beginning. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. They had a powerful weapon, but the enemy would return, stronger than before. Daniel turned to his crew. "We need to get back to human space. We need to warn Earth." Sarah nodded, setting course now. As the Endeavour jumped into hyperspace, Daniel looked out at the stars. They had survived this time, but the enemy would not stop, and neither would they. The Endeavour moved quickly through space, heading toward human territory. The battle had been won, but the crew knew that the enemy would not stop. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the command center, watching the stars outside. They had the weapon, and they had survived, but now they had to warn Earth. Sarah Morgan worked at the main console, scanning the surrounding space. "No enemy ships detected so far," she said, "but that could change any moment." Eric Dawson sat at his workstation, checking the weapon's energy levels. "That blast drained a lot of power. We need time to recharge it if we're going to use it again." Daniel nodded. "How long?" "At least a few hours," Eric replied. "Maybe more." Daniel turned back to Sarah. "How far are we from the nearest human outpost?" She checked the star map. "About 6 hours away at full speed. We should reach it before the enemy finds us again." The crew worked in silence, everyone focused on their tasks. They had no room for mistakes. The enemy was watching, waiting for their next move. After 2 hours, Sarah suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. A signal. It's weak, but it's coming from nearby." Daniel walked over. "Can you trace it?" Sarah worked quickly, adjusting the scanners. "It's an emergency beacon. Human origin. A ship must be in trouble." Eric frowned. "It could be a trap. The enemy could be using it to lure us in." Daniel thought for a moment. They could not afford to lose time, but they also could not ignore a distress signal. "Can you identify the ship?" Sarah tried to clear the interference. "It's an old transport ship. The signal is weak, which means they've been out here for a while. If there are survivors, they won't last much longer." Daniel made his decision. "We're going in. Keep the weapon charged and stay alert. If it's a trap, we'll be ready." The Endeavour changed course, heading toward the signal. As they got closer, they saw the damaged ship floating in space. It was an old freighter, its hull burned and broken. There was no sign of life, but the distress signal was still active. Sarah scanned the ship. "I'm detecting low power levels. There might still be survivors." Daniel turned to his team. "Eric, take a team and check it out. Be quick." Eric and 2 soldiers suited up and took a small shuttle to the freighter. They entered through a damaged airlock, their weapons ready. The inside of the ship was dark and cold. Sparks flickered from broken wires, and the air smelled of burnt metal. They moved carefully through the corridors, scanning for life signs. Suddenly, Eric stopped. "I got something. Weak life signs. This way." They followed the signal to a small room. Inside, they found a man and a woman, barely conscious. Their clothes were torn, and their faces were pale. They had been stranded for days. Eric contacted the Endeavour. "We found 2 survivors. They're alive, but weak. We're bringing them back." As they carried the survivors back to the shuttle, the ship suddenly shook. A deep humming sound filled the air. One of the soldiers looked around. What was that? Eric's face turned serious. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here. Now." They rushed back to the shuttle and launched toward the Endeavour. As they left the freighter, Sarah's voice came through the radio. "Enemy ships detected. They just appeared on our scanners." Daniel reacted instantly. "All hands. Battle stations. Prepare to fire." The enemy ships moved fast, surrounding the Endeavour. Bright energy beams shot through space, barely missing the human ship. Eric and the team docked quickly. As soon as they were inside, the Endeavor's engines roared to life. The ship twisted and turned, dodging enemy fire. The new weapon was still charging, and they had to buy time. Sarah checked the weapon's status. Almost ready. Just a little longer. Daniel clenched his fists. Hold steady. The enemy ships closed in, their weapons charging for a final strike. Just as they fired, the Endeavor's weapon activated. A bright blue beam shot forward, cutting through space. It struck the nearest enemy ship, causing a massive explosion. The blast spread, destroying 2 more ships in seconds. The remaining enemy ships hesitated. Then, they turned and disappeared into hyperspace. The crew let out a sigh of relief. They had survived again. Daniel looked at Sarah. Get us to that outpost. No more stops. Sarah nodded. Plotting course now. As the Endeavor moved toward safety, Daniel glanced at the 2 rescued survivors. Get them to the med bay. When they wake up, I want to know who they are and what happened to them. The war was not over. The enemy would return. But for now, they had won another fight. And every battle brought them one step closer to victory. The Endeavor moved toward the human outpost, its engines humming softly. The crew was tired, but there was no time to rest. The enemy had been pushed back, but they would come again. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the bridge, watching the stars. He knew that the fight was not over. Sarah Morgan checked the scanners. We are close to the outpost. Just a few more minutes. No enemy ships detected. Eric Dawson looked at the weapon's status. Energy levels are still low. It needs time to fully recharge. If we have to fight again soon, we won't be at full power. Daniel nodded. We'll deal with that later. First, we need to reach the outpost and warn Earth. The 2 survivors from the freighter were in the medbay. One of them, a man named Alex, had woken up. He was weak but alert. When Daniel walked in, Alex tried to sit up. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. Take it easy. You're safe now. Alex took a deep breath. Thank you. We thought we were dead. My partner, Lisa, is she. She's alive, Daniel said. She's resting. Can you tell me what happened? Alex nodded. We were traders, moving supplies between colonies. Then the enemy attacked. We sent out a distress signal, but no one came. They didn't destroy us. Instead, they scanned us. Then they left. Daniel frowned. Scanned you. What were you carrying? Nothing special. Food, medicine, basic supplies. But they were looking for something. I don't know what. Daniel thought for a moment. The enemy had the power to destroy them, yet they had only scanned the freighter. They were searching for something. But what? The ship's intercom buzzed. Sarah's voice came through. Captain, we are arriving at the outpost. Sending docking request now. Daniel left the med bay and returned to the bridge. The outpost was a small station floating in space, its lights blinking softly. They received permission to dock, and the Endeavor moved in carefully. As soon as the airlock opened, Daniel and his team stepped out. A group of officers met them, their faces serious. One of them, a man named Commander Harris, stepped forward. Captain Carter, Harris said, shaking his hand. We received your message. You said it was urgent. Daniel wasted no time. We have new information about the enemy, and we have a weapon that can change the war. Harris led them to a secure briefing room. Daniel explained everything. The battle, the ancient weapon, and the strange behavior of the enemy. The officers listened in silence. When Daniel finished, Harris rubbed his chin. This weapon, are you sure it works? Eric, who had come with them, spoke up. We've used it twice. It's powerful, but we don't fully understand it yet. We need time to study it. Harris nodded. You'll get that time. But there's something you need to know as well. We have intercepted enemy communications. They are preparing for something big. A full-scale attack. Daniel's face darkened. On Earth. We don't know yet, but they are moving their forces. Sarah looked at Daniel. If we don't act fast, it might be too late. Harris stood. We need to send this information to command immediately. If the enemy is planning a large attack, Earth must be ready. Daniel took a deep breath. Then let's move. We can't afford to wait. The next few hours were filled with activity. Messages were sent to Earth, and defense plans were discussed. The Endeavor's crew helped where they could, making sure their ship was ready for whatever came next. In the quiet moments, Daniel stood by a window, looking at the vastness of space. He knew that the war was about to enter its most dangerous stage. The enemy was coming, and they would not stop. Eric walked up beside him. We're not done yet. Daniel nodded. No, we're not. But this time, we have a chance. As the station prepared for the battle to come, the crew of the Endeavor knew that the fight for humanity was just beginning.